Welcome back, troops. Let's Tab 59. Bit of a damp old day. On and off showering, so not great for making videos with a phone that ain't waterproof. It's just a bit of a lull in it at the moment. Let's get under this tree. There's a little bit of a lull in the weather, so I thought I'd quickly knock this video out. So I just finished 6 miler, a little bit, because I've been tabbing. When it starts to drizzle down, you want to get going, so I've had a fair old lick on. Anyway, back now, and it's sheltered down a bit, as you can see. So, what I want to talk to you today, I hope everyone's well, by the way. Hope everyone's okay. What I want to talk about British Army radio equipment, communication equipment that I'm aware of in my time in the forces. Not a massively interesting subject, but let's face it, all of us, all you veterans out there at some stage or another would have had to use communication systems. Now, I'm not talking about all the sophisticated stuff that you raw signals guys have, etc. I'm just talking about the bog standard stuff that the average British soldier would have got his hands or her hands on. Oh, tornado, not tornado, typhoon. So, when I started off, as you know, probably some of you in the 70s, the communication system, the radio equipment that we had was called Larkspur. Now, Larkspur was developed in the late 40s, so I mean you can tell how old that was. I got it in the 70s, we were using it. It consisted of different types of sets. The whole family name of the radios were called Larkspur. So you had the A40s, the A41s, A42s. They were the backpack, the man-packing ones, mainly for the infantry, infanteers, etc. And there was a couple of vehicle-borne radio sets, all VHF that I remember. There was HF sets, but we never used them. So the VHF vehicle-borne set, that's the one that I mainly used when I was signalling in the Royal Artillery, was designated the C45. Big old lump, solid old lump, not that brilliant. I mean, by the time we'd got it in the 70s, like I say, it come out in the 40s, so it was old and had been bashed around. Not very good. Can't tell you what the range was on it, can't remember, done my course so long ago. It's gone. But obviously the equipment didn't have a great range on it, and it always depended on the train you was in. So we had that Larkspur, and when you fitted the C45 to your Land Rover, and it had to be a specialist, well, not specialist Land Rover, but it had to be an FFR Land Rover, which stood for fitted for radio. There's normally a long wheelbase Land Rover, and in the back compartment of the Land Rover you had obviously a platform on the back that you fitted the C45, you bolted the C45 down to, and then underneath that there was a large green metal box. You unhooked and lifted it, and that exposed your batteries, and those were the batteries just to run that radio system. And obviously those batteries were charged off of the Land Rover engine, so they were separate from the battery that you have in your car or whatever. Now, also on the front wing of the Land Rover is where you'd fit the antenna for that particular radio, and that went into a little box, and then the box was bolted to the front wing. It's called an ATU, antenna tuning unit, and that was bolted on the front wing of the Land Rover, and I think it had a 2-meter whip antenna in 2 sections that went into that, and that was your antenna for that one. So we had the Larkspur system, and I think it went over to Clansman for us in the early 80s. I might be wrong, it might have been the late 70s, but I think it wasn't until the early 1980s that we got the next generation, which was called Clansman. Now, when Clansman come in, that was like, it was like science fiction to us. I mean, it's really old stuff now, long gone, Clansman, but when it first came out, we were amazed by it because everything was a bit smaller, everything was a little bit easier to use, a little bit more powerful, so it was quite revolutionary. Now, going back to Larkspur, if you were set up as a base unit, say you were in a command post, in a box body vehicle for instance, and you've got a couple of C45s in there, whatever, if you wanted to extend your communications, you would have a mast, and on top of the mast was an antenna. So with the Larkspur set, I think it was a 27-foot mast, come in a big big long sort of telescopic thing that had a base plate. You'd peg that down in the ground, and then it had guide ropes coming off it. You'd slot the bottom of the mast into like a little bayonet fitting, and there'd be a couple of you doing this, by the way, and then you would raise the pole up section by a time telescopically, and it was done up with a little spanner. There's like a nipple sticking out on each section. You tightened it up the next level, tightened, so on. Now at the top of that 27-foot mast, I think it was 27 foot, put me right if I'm wrong on this, on the top of that was the antenna itself. Now the antenna had little graticules marked on it, a scale marked on it, and what used to happen is whatever the frequency was for that particular period of time that you're operating on the radio, then that denoted how tall or how short this antenna, how long or how short this antenna would be on top of the 27-foot mast. So that of course meant that every, say, 12 hours when you change frequencies, you'd have to go outside, hopefully not on your own because it was a nightmare, lower the mast down and then readjust the antenna on top and then put the whole thing back up again. And I can remember trying to do it on my own one night out on Hona Range in the dark. And as I was putting the mast back up and trying to tighten this spanner up at the same time, the bottom bit come out of the base plate. And I'm trying to hold on to a 27-foot fishing rod that weighed half a ton or whatever. So it was a real nightmare. When we went over to Clansman, obviously they had to replace that mast with the Clansman version. I think it was, now was it 8 metre or was it 12 metre mast? Surely it was 8 metre, wasn't it? I don't know. Please let me know in the comments if it was 8 metres or 12 metre mast for the Clansman. For Clansman. Now the good advantage with that was you didn't need a little spanner anymore. Same sort of setup, had a base plate, you pegged it out, had guide ropes, etc. But you didn't need a little spanner. You just pushed the each section of the telescopic mast up, and then just tightened it with like a little knurled collar until you got it right up, and then tighten up your guide ropes. Jobs are good. But the other advantage with it was that when you change frequency, you didn't have to drop the mast down and change the antenna on top of the mast. It was automatically done with some jiggery pokery stuff that went on inside it, some electronics. So that made life a lot easier, changing that putting the mast up, for instance. So that was Clansman. The radios, well, like I said, with the Larkspur, the C45, when Clansman come out, that was replaced by the 353. That was a vehicle-borne radio. Same sort of thing, you bolt it in the back of your Land Rover on a similar platform to the C45, and you had your box of batteries, with your box covering the batteries in the back of the FFR. And then on the front wing of your Land Rover, instead of having an ATU, an antenna tuning unit, you had a TUAM. Right, let's go, TUAM. Tuning Unit Antenna Automatic Measuring, something like that, TUAM. So that was bolted on the front, same detail, 2 metre width, and that's how you projected your signals. With regards to man packs, as I say, with Larkspur you had your A40, A41, A42. With the Clansman system, the VHF backpack, backman portable radio on your back, if you like, was the 351. The 351. And normally in a platoon, say, the platoon commander signaller would have the 351 on his back and stick close to the platoon commander, and that's how their comms were working for that. Section commander level, now each section commander had his own radio, which is sort of like clipped on here. You could put down the side of your webbing, come in a little holster, 349 it was. You could have rechargeable battery packs that bolted on the bottom, or in fact you could put is it AA or AAA batteries in them. Feed, I mean, used to eat them. You can put those in it as well. Had a little antenna that you could put around your neck, or a little whip up here. Had a headset thing with a little throat mic and a little presser box switch clip somewhere. So section commanders now could have comms direct with the platoon commander, etc. So that was pretty cool. The platoon sergeant had a 350 radio, slightly larger, and that could actually bolt onto a wing of a Land Rover, I believe, as well, and bolt into the TUAM. So that was the sort of Clansman radios that I remember dealing with. There's lots of others, HF sets and all sorts, but I never got involved with those. I just had the basic infantry stuff for Clansman and the 353 in a vehicle. Now, as far as codes go, it's like same sort of subject, but just a little bit off of it. we had obviously had to encrypt codes. When we was talking on the net, we couldn't really talk all the time in open, clear voice because it would be intercepted by an enemy and know he's up to. So things had to be encoded, especially things like grid references. Now, when I joined up, there was a system called Griddle, but I never learned it. Griddle went out when I joined. I think it was just changing over from Griddle to something called Mapco. And Mapco is a little box of numbers and it had letters, etc. And when you wanted to encode a grid reference, which was say a 6-figure grid, you would just look along, come down, and there was letters around the top, so you could change the grid reference from numbers into letters and say that over the net. My location, A, B, C, D, F, G, whatever. Bloke at the other end would have the same little card as you, and he could translate that into the grid reference. So that was to make sure the enemy didn't know what grids you were giving out. Coupled with Mapco was a way of actually encoding orders or specifics, and that was called SlideX. SlideX was developed in the Second World War, and we were using that right up until the 80s. A SlideX came in a little sort of A5 size wallet, and you had a system of vocab cards. Each card was numbered. You take the card out that you want. Say there'd be a card for movements, or there'd be a card for attacking or defending, or a logistics card. So if you want to talk about logistics, for instance, you wanted to request or give stats of how much ammunition and food and POL you've got, you would take out the logistics card, for instance, slide that into your wallet. Along the top and the side of your wallet, you had 2 little strips of plastic, and you would write on there, you've given the codes for that day, you'd write on there your little codes. The guy at the other end would have exactly the same as you, and when you wanted to talk, you'd switch to a vocab card, tell him what card number and your code, etc. It's quite hard to explain like this, but you would move the cursors around and then read down box number 3, POL required, or whatever, and you could make your whole message up in a SlideX message. So you could talk between each other, ordering equipment, ammunition, supplies, evacuating caches, whatever it was, without hopefully the enemy knowing what you're talking about. Funny enough though, they found that it was cracked within about 6 hours by the Germans when we had it, and we never knew. But SlideX was something. SlideX went out, and the new system come in, which was called Batco. Remember that, Badger? Batco, what a nightmare as well. I mean, they're all hard. They're all difficult to use. So Batco come out, and Batco done away with Mapco. So now you didn't need a separate code. You could encode encrypted messages and also grid references. So you didn't have to have these vocab cards anymore, and you didn't have to have Mapco to send your grid. You could do your grid in Batco. Now, an interesting point on Batco, that was an A5 wallet, and it just had one little slider that went up and down the card. You would get issued a little card that went inside for that day. It'd have a to and from time at the top, and it'd just be a series of letters. And you would have your little cursor, you'd put it down, and you read off his biograms, so Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, whatever it was. And that's how your message went. The guy at the other end of the same card, same detail as SlideX in a way, but a little bit easier to use. And you could encrypt whole messages and decrypt them a lot quicker. So Batco went on for some time. I think Batco went out the window in the early 2000s maybe, when we went over to a new communication system called Bowman. So Bowman was encrypted, clear voice encrypted, so it shouldn't be intercepted, so we didn't have to have Batco anymore. But when Batco come out, now pretty much everything message that you send over the radios used to have to be encoded, because for obvious reasons the enemy were listening, and you said, right, I'm off I'm driving now from this location 1 2 3 4 5. They'd hear it, they'd know where you're going. So everything had to be encoded apart from this, going back in SlideX days, a contact report. Infantry guy on the ground, whether it be in Northern Ireland or an exercise in Germany or wherever, as soon as you come under fire, effective enemy fire, and the section went to ground, the section commander's first thing he would do when he gets down is send an initial contact report back to headquarters. So he'd say, hello, 0, this is 11 Alpha, whatever, contact, wait out. As soon as he said that, everyone else on the net then would shut up, because that call sign's in contact. He would then have to, in his earliest opportunity, he would have to send a full contact report, and that again was sent in clear, because what's the point in encoding your contact report of where you are and what's happening to you? You haven't got time to do that. And what's the point? The enemy already know who you are because they're shooting at you. They know where you are. So a contact report was, a full contact report was when, where, what. So when is it? Where is it? So time, when is it? Is your time. Where is it? Your location, and you give the grid reference for that. What is it? What is the enemy? What is it doing? Sorry, what is it? What is it doing? Is it engaging you? And what you're doing about it. So you'd send that in clear. Now, when we went over to Batco, I was in Northern Ireland, and we got called in, all the section commanders and 2 ICs, brick commanders and 2 ICs got called in. We went to a UDR base. It might have been 11 UDR, Portadown, I don't know. But anyway, we went to this UDR camp, and there's a guy there, obviously a signals guy, not Royal Signals, but a guy that was in the signals platoon or whatever. And they gave us a whole day, I think it was, of lectures showing us how to use Batco. And while they were going through those lessons, they then said, and by the way, from now on, from today, now you've learnt Batco, even your contact reports are going to have to be sent. So your when, where, what, it's all got to be sent in Batco. What a joke. How can you do that? And I mean, it was taking you so long. You know, you try as a section commander, brick command, you're in a contact, you're trying to come up with QBOs, quick battle orders for your troops to deal with this contact. And at the same time, you've got to get a wallet out and start encoding grids and what the enemy is and what you're doing about it, etc. And that's what initially they wanted us to do. It obviously went out the window. It wasn't going to work. And but I'd already said to a couple of the other section commanders out, I said, listen, if I get in a contact, I'm sticking to clear voice, where, when, where, what. I'm not putting into code. But that's what they want us to do. So that's just a little touch on some, I hope it's brought back a couple of memories maybe of any funny moments you've got, guys, with working with communication equipment, whether it's Larkspur, whether it's Clansman, 27-foot mast or whatever, trying to encode Batco or decode Batco or SlideX, China graphs, oh, I remember that, China graphs, trying to write everything down. Nightmare. Let me know in the comments. So, hope everyone's well, have a good week. There's going to be a lot more videos coming, do not worry, I'm working on stuff. And if you're a new viewer, or you've watched a couple of mine, you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, please consider it. I'm not saying do it, I never say do it, I always say consider it. Channel's growing really well, just past 8,000 subscribers, so we're getting there. I've done a Q&A the other week, the weekend rather. Want to do another one of those, I'll announce that, and then I'll put up a video so you can put your questions in the comments, and we'll get traced around to try and collate them. So that's it for now, troops. Stay safe. Until the next time, won't be long. Let's tap.